Okay, I did Glencoe Health by Mary H. Bronson, and that was the text that I chose. Sorry. So the information in the text is presented. There's 9 units, and with each unit, it contains anywhere from 2 to 4 lessons in each unit. And the lessons within each unit correlate directly to the same theme, and I'll get into that a little bit more as I go through the slides. So throughout each lesson, there are a number of different ways the text engages the reader, ranging from pre-reading assignments to end-of-lesson assessments, to vocabulary, to charts and graphs, etc. So how the text motivates the readers, I think kind of built in to the text, is good health. For most human beings, good health is definitely a consideration and a motivation. So it's maybe a little bit different than math or English, but health typically is built in for most of us. So there's a built-in motivation that's inherent. But for teenagers specifically, many of them are motivated by how healthy they feel, how healthy they look, and how they're perceived. So the text does a good job of tapping into that, and it uses a number of different strategies and exercises in the book to keep the reader motivated. For example, at the beginning of the book, before the student even has a chance to dig into the first unit or first chapter, there's a nutrition handbook, and there's a picture here of what that looks like in the beginning of the book, and explains what foods you need to be eating and why they're healthy eating, and how they can help you. In my experience, I found a number of the students that I'm teaching, and I referenced it in another class, don't even know how to read food labels. So a nutrition handbook can be very motivating to people who are interested in eating healthier and exercising, that kind of thing, when they don't know how to begin with. Another example might be a segment in the book called the Fitness Zone, and the Fitness Zone segments are found throughout the books, kind of in the middle of each lesson. It's kind of off to the side, and Fitness Zone is kind of like a testimonial given from the point of view of a student, kind of a peer mentoring type deal. And I give an example of what that looks like in the book here. So again, another motivating segment in the book, because it's a point of view. It's supposed to be a point of view of another student. Graphics are used throughout the book, on, if not every page, almost every page. There's some type of graphic, ranging from diagrams like the health triangle here, to a number of different graphs seen here, to graphic organizers there. But almost every page, several throughout each lesson and chapter, graphics are used abundantly in this book. So sequencing of the book. So with a health and wellness book, it's kind of hard to keep things sequential, but the units are organized together. So the lessons within each unit are laid out and organized. And some units build on prior knowledge from one to another. For example, and there are pictures of the units here. Unit 2 is mental and emotional health, and Unit 3 is healthy and safe relationships, and I think those correlate together. And then Unit 4, it jumps to nutrition and physical activity, and while there might be some loose affiliations there, it's not directly correlated like mental and emotional health would be correlated to healthy and safe relationships. So it jumps a little bit, but within each unit you can see each chapter and each lesson correlates to the unit theme, so it is organized, all right, but not really in a particular sequence from unit to unit. So I think this book does a really good job of connecting to, that says connection to daily students. It's connections to students' daily life, and it does a really good job of that. It has a number of things that do that. So within each unit, there's at least 2 segments called real world connection. You can see all the units, and then there's 2 within each unit. And for example, in Unit 1, the real world connection is titled Teen Risk Taking, and it talks about behaviors such as smoking, drug use, wearing seatbelts, etc. And it charts the behavior and asks students to answer questions about that chart. So another way the text makes connections is it simply covers a lot of topics that teenagers in particular could identify with, such as family relationships, managing stress, eating healthy foods, peer pressure, exercising, etc. So the claims and evidence, the text is backed up by a number of different health organizations, including the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, and the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control. For examples of that, in Chapter 1, Lesson 4, it uses a graph, it's over on the right here, to illustrate overweight and obesity rates in the United States. And in Chapter 3, Lesson 3, illustrates how different people manage anger and other strong emotions, and its Center of Disease Control and the others are cited within those illustrations. So unique content guides, a couple things that are unique to this text that help the readers. There's a pre-reading strategy before each lesson. It's called Before You Read, and it's a small section inside, and it has a number of different things. The most popular 3 pre-reading strategies for the Before You Read are cluster charts, vocabulary cards, and graphic organizers. Every lesson and every unit has an end of lesson assessment, and there's typically 5 questions, and the first 3 questions are lower order questions like define the word blank, and then the last 2 questions are typically higher order questions that require a little more critical thought. For example, write a synthesis of steps one might take to protect their health if they have a history of heart disease. So moving forward, some more unique things about this text. There's an end of unit assessment as well, and then there's within each lesson, there's a technology project-based assessment, and those are typically where they ask the student to go online and find information on a particular subject. That's an example of one right here. So for example, that one is ask the students to go online and find a volunteer opportunity to promote healthy living. That's that one right there. So vocabulary is addressed pretty thoroughly and in a number of different ways. One, at the beginning of every lesson, it lists all the new vocabulary that will be covered. For some lessons, back to that Before You Read assignment, some of the Before You Read assignments have the students write the definition of the vocabulary word based on their current knowledge of the word. So based on their prior knowledge of what they think the word means. And then vocabulary is always covered at the end of lesson and the end of unit assessments. All right, so my final thoughts on it. Big fan of this book for a number of reasons. First, the real world applications that it uses for teens are really good, especially for young teenagers. Covers, the subjects of mental and emotional health I think are of particular importance to them. Second, although this is a wellness textbook, it does a great job of covering several different disciplines, including vocabulary, reading and writing development, and math. And then third, it does a nice job of including excellent graphics and visuals for students. It's not just all text. Just about every page has some type of graphic. Finally, the end of lesson and end of unit assessment challenges students to not only retain information, but challenges them to think critically as well. And there is my reference. So there's my presentation for Glencoe Health.